This is Karen with newclevelandradio.net, and it is time for Avoid the Maze. You know, that journey of life, we're all on it. And some days it looks so perfect. And other days you wonder, how did I get here? I'm standing up against this wall and I can't see right, I can't see left. I'm just stuck. Well, you know what? You really aren't. If you look around, you're going to find out there are options. And we're all in the maze of life, including my guest today. And her name is Isabelle Fortin. Hopefully, I got it right.
You did.
Okay. As I tell everyone, I'm terrible with names. So, never know. And I have this long bio in front of me, and I'm not going to read it, Isabel. We're going to put it in the show notes. So if anybody wants to say, hey, what did I miss? Guess what? You didn't miss anything. But Isabel is going to walk us through her journey because I'm sure there was a time that maybe you saw yourself in a different place, maybe looking different, being different. I know I certainly did. In fact, I got to tell you something. You mentioned my shirt. My mother always loved me in red.
Aw,
Up until this year, I refused to wear red.
aw.
I don't know. Was it because my mother wanted me to wear red and I didn't wear it? Or did I finally move into that phase of life where I said, hey, I like it? So we change, we evolve. So tell us about your evolution.
Nothing at all I had planned. Nothing happened. Nothing. So it's all been just, going left and a little bit right and then back to left. And my entire life has been like this. When I was a kid, all I wanted to do was to be married and have children and be the mother I didn't have. Not because my mom wasn't good at it, just because she passed away. And that's nobody's fault. That's just life.
Sure.
And so that's all that I wanted was to have the Cinderella story and the happily ever after, which we all know is a load of crap because relationships, whether it's love, romantic, friendship, siblings, parents, it is all hard work. All of it is
Exactly.
hard work and compromise and negotiation and selling your idea and not seen, not feeling valued, not being heard. We are all the same. We all have that same desire. And so nothing about my journey was where I thought it was going to be, and I regret absolutely nothing of it because everything that I did, everything that I lived through, everything that I am has brought me to being here with you, and that's fabulous. So, yeah, it's been a big surprise,
I
to,
think if
to say
I
the
think
least.
if more of us understand that where we are at the moment is where we're supposed to be,
Perfect.
even if it is not a feel good moment. Okay. Um, a couple of years ago, my son uh, moved away, took a job about 6 hours away from here. It was supposed to be the job of a lifetime. And he found out almost within 24 hours it was the worst decision he ever made. But he tried so hard to work through it. And when he saw that he couldn't, he finally said, look at, we're going to part ways. I know this isn't going to look good for my resume. It's not going to look good for my future. But if I stay, I'm not sure I'm going to be around because that's how ill it made him. And so he called us up, he packed up his car, he came back home, and it was like, now what? And he went through 4 months of looking for work and feeling like he was never going to find it. He
Mm.
did. And he's 1,000 miles away this time, but he's where he should be. He has never been happier. Now, does he like where he's living? Absolutely not. But does he like what he's doing? And does he like the people he's doing it with? Absolutely. So if you would have told him even when he was a young child, you're going to end up in Texas someday. He would have looked at you and said, you're totally crazy. I'm never leaving Ohio. So you're right. You know, we take this journey, we make some mistakes, but those mistakes make us a better person.
Yeah. And I actually no longer choose to see them as mistakes. They're trials. I'm trying something. And I find, in back to your story, I find that we argue with ourselves. We argue. I have done this several hundred times in my life where no, I'm just going to stick with it. You know, it's going to get better. I'm going to stick with it. Knowing inside my bones that it was the wrong thing. I remember one particular time, it was the last job that I worked for somebody else. And I started working on the Monday, and this is Wednesday, 8 a.m. And I'm sitting at my desk, and I literally said to myself, what the F am I doing here? I do not belong here. But I stuck with it for 18 months until my boss, who was a perfect Jack, and you understand that by Jack, I'm missing 3 letters at the end of
Yes.
that word. Um, but you know what? Even that I don't regret, because I stayed for that company 18 months. And during that 18 months, I formed a wonderful friendship with a friend that is still in my life 15 years later. And it did take us 18 months to become friends. And it is working for this Jack that I realized that I did have what was necessary to become an entrepreneur. I didn't think that I had what it took, because for me, I grew up with no entrepreneurs in my surroundings. My dad
Sure.
was a high school teacher. My mother, before she passed, was a mail carrier. She had been in the military before that, so had been my dad. Like, everybody had a job. And so I thought that being an entrepreneur was, a God-given gift, and I didn't have it until I worked for this person, and I went, well, if he can succeed being such a jack, there's no way in hell I'm failing. So even in if within 48 hours I knew I was in the quote unquote wrong place, it was still not a mistake to stay, because I picked up some stuff along the way, and I picked up courage to fight for myself and say, no, 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 this is bullcrap, and I'm not gonna. I'm going to I'm going to bet on myself. I'm going to start a business. And I did. And I picked up a great friendship that I still nurture to this day. So even when we feel it's a mistake, even when we feel we've taken the wrong decision, there's always something for us in the situation we are in. Now, of course, if it feels bad, if you're in a wrong relationship, or if you're in a toxic relationship, now that's another ballgame. But if it's just that quote unquote mistake, I don't think we make any. We go try stuff, and that's our job. Our job is to knock on as many doors as possible and see which one opens.
You know,
And that's it.
that's a great story, because when I got divorced back in the 80s, um, my friends convinced me that there was an accounting job that I should take. And I said, I don't like accounting. I don't like numbers. They said, Karen, it will be so easy. You'll put incoming in this column, you'll be outgoing in this column, you'll use an adding machine, and you'll be fine. And the first day I started work, the gentleman said to me, now we have 3 sets of books. And my head started spinning, like, what do you mean? Well, this set has to be done this way. And when he started explaining, it made no sense to me. It's like, no, I know how to add and subtract, and that's what I'm going to do for you. And he said, this is what you're going to do. And I tried it. I tried it for almost a week. And I came into work every day in tears. When I went to quit, he said to me, "No, don't quit. You'll finally get it." And I said, "No, I don't want to get it.
The- There you,
I knew
there
this
you go.
wasn't for me. I did it because outside sources told me, hey, you can do it." And I could do it, but I didn't want to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And when I walked out of there, I realized that I wasn't crying anymore because I didn't have to go back in there. So I agree with you. It felt like a mistake, but when I walked out, it did take courage because I didn't have a job and I had to get a job right away. And it was like, okay, but this is one job I will never take again. So we do learn. And if you don't, then you're not being fair to yourself.
It gave you the courage to choose you. That job, that's what it did.
Yep.
It gave you the courage to say, no, this is not. I went with peer pressure and I took the job, even though I didn't want it. And now I'm like, no, this is not what this life is. I felt like that when I decided to leave the military. I right out of high school, I joined the Air Force, and for the past several months, almost a year, I would wake up on Monday morning and cry because I had 5 days of work this week left, and I would cry. And as I and I, my schedule was from Tuesday to Friday to Saturday, and as I got closer to Saturday, I was happier and happier, but because then I would have 2 days off. That's not a life. I
No.
wasn't 30 for crying out loud. This is not a life. You have to love what you do or do what you love or both, ideally.
And
So,
sometimes it's difficult for us to, we know that, but it's difficult for us to do it because we have to put a roof over our head. We have to
yes,
pay the bills.
yes.
Um, and I know when I quit my job and I called my ex-husband and said, I quit, he laughed and said, "What do you want me to do about it?" And I was looking for help, not necessarily for the dollars, but for him to say, "Hey, I know of something else." I remember calling my parents, and my mother said to me, "You made your bed, now you got to sleep in it." And that's when it dawned on me, hey, this is all about me. And I did. Within 24 hours, I found a job. It wasn't going to pay as much, but it gave me that stepping stone. And that's what I tell so many people. It may not be the perfect job, but if it's a better job, if it's a better life, that's what you got to do. You got to take those stepping stones. So, what was it about starting your own business? Because you didn't know you were an entrepreneur.
No. I fought it with every single cell in my body. I fought it. Um, and now I would never go back. Ever, like ever. Um, well, I had been a massage therapist for almost a decade when I quit that job. And but it was for me, it wasn't the way to pay the bills. It was for me, it was a way for me to go on vacation and travel and then pay for all my expenses and not have to worry, okay, so I need to budget, like I want to go to Europe for 3 weeks, I need to budget X amount of, X amount of thousands of dollars. Well, massage was going to pay for that. So it was a great part-time job. Um, but at the time, this was the late '90s, and I was making $60 an hour massaging. So that was, a nice chunk of change for the
Sure.
time. So but I always had a why. So okay, so next vacation, as soon as I came back from vacation, I would plan the next one and figure out how much I would need, and then I work until I got part of it done, buy the plane ticket, work some more. So I was trying to be ahead of the curve. So when I quit my job, it was just the next logical step was just to do that full time. And I was extremely surprised by how quickly I had enough clients to make an actual living. So I'm a strong believer, and that's what my story says too, is I'm a strong believer that when you actually love what you do, people are going to come, right?
And you
So,
and you had to
yeah,
be
go ahead.
vocal about it too, though. It
Yeah,
showed on you.
yeah.
You came out and told people what you were doing, but they also saw that, hey, this is what makes you happy and successful. And I know when I started coaching a year ago, some people who I didn't even think knew me well have reached out and said, but you're a different person. Like you're
Mm-hmm.
finally doing what you like to do. And I said, podcasting, writing, coaching, it's all very meaningful to me because
Mm-hmm.
number one, I get better with each person that I work with. I mean, who doesn't want to find their best self? And if that means that I'm working with you to help you, well, guess what? You're helping me. I get the benefit.
Yes. Yeah. I felt the same way about massage. I haven't been a massage therapist for a few years now. I retired after 24 years. Um, but I felt the same way. It was my massage client who I never, ever, ever, not once had to do a publicity or talk about the fact that everybody would just send me people and the phone would ring and from people like that I couldn't even see the connection between them and myself. It was just, yeah, I heard through, a friend of a friend of a friend of a friend, and only to find out like five people's remove was my actual client that, so, but you have to trust the process. And I totally resonate with what you're saying. I'm an executive coach now, and I learned something from every single one of my clients. All of them. They all bring me something. Sometimes I learn that I don't like a certain type of person, and sometimes I learn how to deal with difficult people. But I learn something with every single human interaction I have, whether it's my personal or my professional life. Yeah.
So, what drew you from massage to coaching? I
Oh, that
mean,
was a
some people
long.
would say a massage therapist in some ways is a coach because people talk.
Yeah. Actually, with me, people always talked because um, I laid the bed for that, right? I wasn't lavender candles and sweet little music in the background, smooth jazz in the background. I was elbow deep, and I left bruises because I only fixed problem. That was one of the things that quickly became my niche as far as massage therapy is concerned. Um, it was it was just listening to the signs. So from massage therapy, I became a mindset coach. And that came from a massage client who, at the end of an appointment, she had been coming to see me every month for a decade. And at the end of an appointment, she said, Isabel, I don't only come to see you for the massages. I mean, don't get me wrong. I love them and I need them and, I appreciate them. But I come to you so I can talk with you, so I can share what's going on. Because every time I leave your house, my office was in my house, I always leave with a different perspective. Whatever it is that I'm going through, whether it's fighting with my teenagers, she had two at the time. Well, she still has two, it's just they're adult now. And whether it's, infighting in at the office or with students or whatever, whenever I share with you, once you're done giving me your input about this particular situation, it always leaves me with a different perspective. You're like my life coach, she said. And Karen, I cannot tell you how much I hate that term. Now, people listening that are life coaches out there, I don't hate you. I do believe that there's room for people to do what you guys do. Seriously, it is in demand and there's a reason for that. It's just, I don't like the term. It's not the job, it's the
Sure.
term. And so I went, oh, for crying out loud, I'm not a life coach. But then she just planted the seed. And then, I went to school. I'm going to be 97 years old and I'll be in college full time. That's just my personality. So I went to do neuro linguistics programming certification, and then I did EFT, which is emotional freedom tapping, and then I did holistic kinesiology, and all of that just for fun. I had no intentions of ever becoming a coach. It was just, I was intrigued. And every time I would learn something new, I was intrigued still. And so I became a mindset coach and very quickly understood that my niche is leadership, is to teach leader or show leaders that the best way to lead a team is to seek and put in value each and every single members of their team on an individual level. And it is the individuals when they feel seen and heard and value, and that their way of doing things is good, that what they bring to the table is out of this world because nobody has their perspective. When you do that for every single one of your team member, you don't have to create team synergy. You don't. It will be there and it will live despite of you. So that's what I do now is I show leaders how to tap into the unique abilities of every single one of their team members. So it's like a big puzzle, and I put the pieces in the right place and say, this task, because I evaluate everything, the task and the people. So this people, you have this person do this task every week. And every week, this is the worst moment of their week. How about we gave this task to this person, because this person loves structure and loves uh, rules, and not only would that person be comfortable in that task, but they will excel in it. And all of a sudden you've taken something that is extremely irritable from one team member, give it to the other team member, but for that person it's not something painful, and you improve their lives. It's
It's
not.
interesting how you describe that because before I started podcasting and coaching, I was working for a private college. And when I first started, I loved everything I did. Well, actually, I always loved what I did, just didn't like the culture going forward.
Yeah.
But my original manager did just that. When I was brought on, I was asked to be in charge of the high school program. So kids coming straight out of high school into the college. And I looked at him and I said, I'm the oldest one on the team. Why would you want me to do high school? He said, you've got the energy and you may look at yourself in the mirror and say, I'm the oldest. He said, but you certainly don't act the oldest here. And I agreed with him. And I loved working with the high school kids. It was the toughest part of the enrollment because most of them were inner city kids who didn't have any money. And you had to convince them and their parents about student loans, and wasn't the favorite part of my job, but the overall enrollment and talking to these kids and helping them find what they were really interested in, or pointing them into a different direction that maybe college isn't for you. Maybe there's trade school. Maybe you want to go take a job initially. I excelled. I loved it. But then along came a new manager who said, you're so good doing this. we're going to move you over to the adult population.
Wasn't it?
And I didn't have the same energy
Mhm.
because adults are different than teens.
Yeah, yeah.
And,
Not so boring.
but they saw, hey, look what you're doing here. We're just going to transfer it. And I worked very, very hard at it. But the longer I stayed in that role, there was so much competition. And that's not what I wanted. I wanted to do what was right for the student, not go up against other people in the department and they're enrolling 50 and I'm enrolling 5.
Mm,
But my 5 stayed enrolled.
yeah, yeah.
Out of their 50, maybe 10 stayed enrolled.
It's not about numbers. It's about the impact.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
So when you have the right person who's listening, who you're talking to, they can create a phenomenal organization.
Yeah.
But if that
And this
person
is,
doesn't want to listen,
well, I don't work with them.
yeah,
They don't want, first of all, because I'm expensive, and second of all, because I never, even because I work with middle management too, but if they don't control their purse strings, I don't talk to them. I get hired by by someone who controls the purse string. So I, it's, yeah, I won't, I, I won't. If you want, if you created a toxic environment and, sorry, and you want your toxic environment to stay, then I'm the wrong person for you. So, but I tend not to attract these people because they don't like my energy.
and that's the interesting part. As an entrepreneur, we can determine
Mm-hmm.
who we're going to work with and who we're not. And that can affect our overall finances at times, but we have those choices. And I just made one last week with the client whose parents wanted to pay for his coaching. He's over the age of 21. He wants the coaching, but the parents want to know everything that's going to happen in the coaching. And it was like, no, you got the wrong coach then. And it hurt to have to say it because I knew that this young man really could have done very, very well.
Mm-hmm.
He goes to my website every day and he picks up things and he'll send me little notes. But I don't respond because you're not my client. You're getting the
Mm-hmm.
free stuff. That's wonderful. But I won't work with anybody either if they are not going to make the commitment because I work with coaches and when I start going iffy on them, they'll go, really? Bye. And no, 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 I understand. Okay, let's start working. Because
Well,
sometimes you
oh,
need to be
sorry, go ahead.
guided.
Yeah. Back to your comment that, sometimes you struggle a little bit more financially when you refuse to get clients. I think that's extremely short-lived. I think that when you set up and you tap into your top 20% and you let go of the bottom 80 that's draining you of
Yeah,
energy, draining you of time and not, yes, of course, for a short amount of time, it's going to, you're going to need to readjust, but if you do go into your top 20 and the bottom 80 go, you're going to make so much more. And I'm not only talking about money, so much more impact, so much more positivity in your life, and you're going to have more free time. So yeah, and that's, I refuse clients more than I accept them, just because I will not work with everybody. Have you ever heard the story, the difference between the $500 client and the $50,000 client? Have you ever heard that story?
no,
Okay, so the $500 client, he sends the check, but he sends a long email with the wire transfer saying, well, I hope that you understand, the trust that I am putting in you and investing that money, And, I trust that I'm, going to get value back and blah, 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 blah for an entire email. So that's the mindset of a $500 client. A $50,000 client will say, money sent, thank you. Because they don't have time to waste. And if they decided to hire you, they don't have time to waste. They trust you. They're sending you their money, so they
Right.
trust you. So it is difficult, especially in the beginning when you're an entrepreneur, to say, I am not going to deal. I've had to, I'm going to give you an example that's a little bit more concrete in my life. Initially, when I started my business, I wanted to do individual coaching like you do,
Right.
and love it. People need it, and it isn't for me. I had to at some point go say no. I'm going after the CEOs. I'm going after the captain of industries. I'm going after at least upper management, not necessarily like all the way up, but that have enough control to say, yep, I hire you and that's it. But in that transition where I'm no longer taking individual and doing workshops, Zoom courses with 12 people where I have to negotiate time and time zones and when are you available and blah, 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 blah with everybody, that was draining me of my energy. Other people do it, and if they're okay with it, that's fine. That's wonderful because there's something for everybody in this world. It was just draining my energy. Well, there's nothing in this world that deserves this kind of energy for me. So, was there a moment where I had to, you have to let go and trust that, the other branch that you're going to hang on to, like Tarzan in the forest, is going to be there. But when Tarzan is going from branch to branch, he lets go of the branch he's on before he grabs on to the next one. In that period of time where you're holding on to nothing is scary like a mofo,
Right.
but you have to do it.
Yep.
You have to do it. So it is having the mindset of 10x is easier than 2x because it is. Because
Well,
to because to go 2x, you just need to improve a little bit on what you're doing and double down on it. To go 10x, you have to let go of the identity and create a new one.
and when I first started coaching, it's interesting. It was almost a year ago. My son called me on a Wednesday night. He was in terrible pain. He didn't know what was wrong with him. He sounded horrible. And I said, you've got to call 911. He's 1,000 miles away. And he goes, oh, I don't think it's that bad. And he's moaning and he's groaning. Well, to make a long story short, finally, he kept me on the phone all night long. He said, please be my lifeline. And if I had been smart, I would have picked up my husband's phone and called 911. But that's hindsight. The next morning, he did call 911. He was rushed into the hospital. He had emergency surgery. His gallbladder almost exploded on him. I was with him. I stayed with him. I nursed him for a week. But as I was doing it, he said, Mom, you've missed the boat. I said, which boat did I miss this time? And he said, you've been podcasting for 10 years. You work with coaches. Why aren't you coaching?
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't think about it. And he said, that's basically what you did at the college. You were
Mm-hmm.
good at it. You loved it. You hated leaving it. And I said, okay. And I said, well, I got my certification 2 years ago. He goes, seriously? What are you doing? Just sitting on it? And I said, yes. I said, I wanted to learn something. To make a very long story short, I went and sat at my computer. I made an announcement. And lo and behold, I had people who started contacting me. saying,
Mm,
do you have an opening next month? Do you have an opening this week? I wasn't expecting that.
mm,
I thought I was going to have to go digging. But I have made the choice that there's only so many individuals I want to take on at a time because I want to do the best for them. And I want to be open to learning from them. So
mhm.
if I have like some who are very successful, who are seeing 8 people a day, no, I'll see 2 or 3 a week. Because you know what? That's enough. That's enough for me to help and get through. But we all are individuals. Now, I would not enjoy doing what you're doing
And
because
yeah,
uh,
that's great because I wouldn't enjoy doing what you're doing. So that's
exactly.
fabulous. There's room for the both of us on this planet. That's great.
And that's what our listeners have to know. We're all different. We all
Yeah.
can make choices that make us feel good. Now, would my husband like for me to do what you're doing? Oh, most likely.
Hey,
But
there's room for all of us and like I would invite people that in your audience that are thinking, yeah, but I'm not going to become a coach. There's literally a million coaches on this. Actually, there's 15 million coaches on this planet. Um, but there's no one like you. No one.
exactly.
No one is like you on this planet. No one has your life experiences, your DNA. No one, no one. So what you bring to the world is different. There's a gazillion, I don't know the exact number, self-help book available that have been written in the last 100 years, and yet people publish them every day and they sell some because what you have to say with your unique communication style, with your unique language, with your experience, your mindset, where you come from, who you are, the world needs that message. So just, if you're scared, that's fine. Do it scared. It is courage before confidence.
Well, but if we don't take that step forward, I mean, we did as babies, okay?
Yep.
We found a way to crawl, we found a way to walk, we found our voice. Um, I'll never forget my mother said to me, the first words out of my mouth, she didn't quite understand, but she didn't think that they were good words. And I said, hey, I had 2 older brothers. Don't blame it on me. Um,
That's funny.
but we all are different. You have to find the courage
Yep.
just to wake up every morning sometimes. And so, you know, don't think less of yourself, think the best of yourself.
Yep.
Because when I put my head on the pillow at night, I want to be able to say, I had the best day I could have today.
That's it.
Maybe better tomorrow, may not be, but you know what? I had the best day I could have today. And sometimes that means putting on a red shirt to brighten up your day. And I think that's what I did today.
Love your shirt. Love. I have shirt envy.
So, how can our listeners find you, Isabelle? Because you have a lot to offer, and
Thank you.
we are going to have business individuals out there who are saying, you know what? My culture needs to change. And maybe I'm the one who needs to start that.
Hey, listen, there's no one on this planet that does what I do. Period. I mean, there's a lot that do similar things, but nobody does it like I do. And this is not me being cocky, mind you. I am a little bit cocky. It's just me knowing my value. I hang out mainly on LinkedIn. That's the best way to find me. So I'm sure you'll put it in the show notes. And my name is
Yes.
Isabelle with 2 L's and an E at the end and an A because most American call me Isabella, and it's not. It's Isabella, and my last name is Fortin. So you can connect with me, tag me, DM me on LinkedIn, and I reply to everybody. Sometimes it takes me a little while. I am at the stage where I really need to get another VA because the first one is too busy, but that's okay.
Well, you know, You're going to do what you're going to do when you're ready to do it. And
Yes, I do
I
what I
have to
can.
remind myself of that every day. This morning, I looked at a list of things I thought I was going to do today. And I said, you know what? No, I'm going to cross off a few of those because it's not
Yeah,
important enough today.
I
So,
do what I can, and that's it. There's a you know, as you can tell from the French accent, I am from Montreal, so that's in the French part of Canada, and my dad was an English teacher, so I was raised with both languages. But so we we used to laugh in my family because when I was a child, I would say I did the best I are, and it always stuck because that's what it is. That's I do the best of me and whatever I can bring to the table that day, and that's it.
well, that is a good way to look at life because we get to judge ourselves before somebody else judges us. And I will tell you, if I had grown up that way, I think I would have found myself a little bit sooner. But I listened to all the people who were judging me. Um, and maybe they weren't judging me as harshly as I thought, but that's what I heard. That's what I interpreted. That's what I carried on my back for a very long time. And when I finally started to let it go, I started to realize that those people meant well, but maybe
Mm-hmm.
their language just didn't connect with me. And so we got to remember that sometimes we can say things to each other and we can roll our eyes and think, who do they think they are? And like you said, I may not be the best coach for everybody. You might not be the best coach for everybody. There's plenty of us out there. Let's
Right.
go out and look around and let's make tomorrow a good day.
That's right.
Thank you so much. I
You're very
certainly
welcome.
appreciate you.
Oh, that was lovely. Thank you.
Talk to you soon. Bye bye now.